The Tennessee Titans are not expected to play many of their starters on Saturday night, which means it's Malik Willis's time to shine. I'll preview the game on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, the Tennessee Titans play their second preseason game of the year on Saturday night. We aren't expected to see a lot of starters, but we are expected to see Malik Willis get the start. What should be the expectations for Willis in that game? Also, there are a ton of young players who will have the opportunity to step up and make the roster. And I got a special guest on today's show who just put out a fantastic book on the Titans that you guys need to hear about. We're going to discuss all of that. Before we get into it, do want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content and a ton of bonus content too, if I do say so myself. All year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. And speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. I'm going to be going live tomorrow immediately after the game ends here on the Locked On Titans YouTube channel to break down all of the action. So make sure that you stay with me for that. So with all that being said, make sure, again, you get subscribed, stay subscribed, throw a thumbs up on the video, throw a Titan up in the chat. And now I'm excited to bring on our special guest. And that special guest is none other than Justin Melo. Melo, as he is affectionately called a lot on the interwebs of Titans Twitter. But Justin Melo covers college football for the Draft Network, does a ton of scouting stuff, also writes for Titan Sized, also writes for Music City Miracles. I got to mention it. I'll do you that, Justin. I've had my issues there. But also, one of the hosts of the Music City Audible. So excited to have Justin on. He recently just released an excellent book that is a must-have for any Titans fan. Now, we will talk about that, but obviously we got this game to get into. And as I said, Malik Willis is going to get the start. Not expected to see a lot of starters. Justin, kind of what's your expectations for Malik Willis, or what are you wanting to see out of Malik Willis?
Well, I think Malik Willis has to be what he's been in lately in joint practices. Remember that training camp scrimmage at Nissan Stadium a couple of weeks ago? He was decisive. He was accurate, and he was aggressive, right? Those were a couple of things we didn't see from him throughout his first couple of years in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to be really comfortable in this new system, playing for Brian Callahan in this offense. I think there's also some natural third-year quarterback growth that we've seen from him, but God, it's really shocked me some of the steps he's taken forward, right? Like in those areas that he really struggled. Remember when Mike Vrabel benched him because he wasn't aggressive enough in like his first preseason game? We've come a long way from that. So this is a big opportunity for him. Callahan's getting him a chance to run with the twos. He deserves this opportunity based on how he's played at practice, at training camp. This is going to be his best remaining chance to prove he belongs on the 53-man roster. I think they're pretty locked in with Mason Rudolph at QB2, but this is going to give him a shot to say, hey, we should carry three teams on this 53-man roster. I belong here. This is going to be a great chance for him.
Yeah, I honestly think that that's more the question. I know, at least from my comment section of my shows and stuff, I know a lot of people are rooting for Malik. I mean, you got people out there who act like Malik is better than Will Levis. You know what I mean? So there are a lot of people out there who are in Malik's corner. But I think the reality is he's not necessarily battling for the backup quarterback spot at this point. He's battling for his roster spot with the team. Because I think there is an opportunity that the Titans could consider churning that position and maybe grabbing a third quarterback, their QB3, off someone else's cuts, if there's somebody else that they were interested in. So I think Malik definitely is fighting for that opportunity. For me, I just want to see him throw the ball. I think there were a few opportunities last week watching the tape. He could have uncorked it, and he just didn't. There's one to Jaquan Jackson over the middle that stands out in my mind. So while there's been improvement, I like to, I guess I try to quantify things. Because we could just talk with words over and over, but I try to put numbers on things sometimes. If Malik Willis, say you need to be a 6 or a 7 to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, and Malik Willis was a 1 or a 2 in his first season, he could have improved majorly and still only made it to about a 4 or 5, which isn't maybe necessarily good enough to make the team. So I think Brian Callahan really wants to see it here. He's betting on it. I guess looking at his opportunity here, I'm guessing he's probably going to play maybe the whole game, like the first half. I don't know how much we'll see Mason Rudolph. I hate to put stats on it, but what kind of stat line would you want to see from Malik Willis?
I mean, throw a touchdown, don't throw an interception. You know what I mean? Like, maybe we can start there. Like, don't make any boneheaded mistakes that are going to hurt the team. Because when you look at his roster chances, one of the things that I think hurts him history-wise, they never really kept 3 quarterbacks in Cincinnati with Brian Callahan there. And keep in mind, this past year, they started the season with Joe Burrow hurt. Like, he had a calf injury, and they still didn't keep 3 quarterbacks to start the year. So that's not great for his chances, but a stat line wise, throw a touchdown, take care of the football, don't throw an interception. I don't know that he's going to get the whole game. I think we'll see Rudolph at least a little bit, but he get at least 2.5 quarters. I'm thinking Malik Willis more than 1 half, having at least midway through the third quarter. But looking forward to what he does out there. It's a huge opportunity for him.
I'll be honest with you, with the plan for the Titans to not play many of the starters, the reality is in this game, one of the only things that can really get people juiced up to watch it is to watch Malik Willis and just see what he does. So I agree with you. I am excited from that standpoint to see what he does. And, I asked the stats and blah, blah, blah. I agree with you. Would like to see him put up points, would like to see him not turn over the ball. But like I know that really what they want to see, get the ball out on time. Don't hesitate. Don't run when you don't have to. Go through your progressions and deliver. Like, really, it's not a statistical expectation that we're talking about. It's just doing quarterback things. I know that seems reductive in a way, but that is kind of what we're looking for. It's not necessarily the stats. It's the way you behave when you have the ball and have your chances. So,
absolutely.
With that being said,
you said it. I mean, it's about oh, sorry. You want me to cut in or?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, you said it. It's doing quarterback things, right? Like, you kind of the progressions, getting the ball out on time. Because I think he did a lot of those things really well in practice and training camp. Slowed down, I think, a little bit for him. The progress did just. It's really about making sure those training.
Yeah, I hear you. A little bit of technical difficulties here, everybody. We're working through it. Cross country. This is an international podcast now, so keep that in mind. But we talked Malik Willis. Now we got to get into the rest of the young players on the team that we're excited to watch, because there's a lot of battles that are really, really, really important on this roster. And I think a big point that Callahan's trying to make here with not playing the starters is trying to iron out some of these end of the roster battles that they got going on. So we'll talk about some players that we're expecting to step up here, players that need to step up with this opportunity. Before we do that, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets. Also, it's summertime, so it's a perfect chance to go to a Major League Baseball game. And to buy those tickets, again, there is no better place than Game Time. They have the best features in the industry. They have all-in prices. You got to toggle it on in your settings. But once you do, I mean, that's hard to find in a ticket buying app, quite honestly. You also get a view from your seat as well, so you know what you're going to be looking at when you sit down. And you get the Game Time guarantee, which makes sure you're going to be paying the lowest price possible. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Titans fans, let's continue today's preview edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about Malik Willis, our expectations, what we're looking on, what we're looking for as well. Now we want to move into the rest of the roster because there are a lot of end of the roster guys who really need to take this opportunity and run with it. Before we get into that, I do want to thank you again for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Football. It's that time of year, folks. You want the best draft insights. You want the best draft strategies so that you can win your league this year. Check out Locked On Fantasy Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We do have a special guest on today's show. Very happy to have Justin Melo, fantastic follow for all Titans fans, does great written work as well. Speaking of written work, he's got an excellent book out about Tennessee Titans history called Titans of the South that is freaking awesome, man. I had the opportunity to skim through it, to read a couple sections. We're going to talk about that here in just a moment, but do want to focus on some of these younger players at the end of the depth chart. And Justin, again, try to be a gracious host here. Speaking of Titans of the South, try to have some Southern hospitality. You tell me what end of the roster players you think really need to step up here, or maybe that you're expecting to step up.
Well, I'm just looking for the position battles, right? At defensive tackle, that now looks different with Marlon Davidson suffering a season-ending injury. We've got guys like the UDFA from Rutgers. Isaiah Aiton is battling for a spot there. I think Keandre Coburn, the nose in Texas, was probably going to make it anyway, but it's a bit more straightforward there for him now. Quinn Ohana, I think, has a better chance now that Davidson is out. TK McClendon Jr., so really what's going on at D-tackle, I think, just got more interesting. RB3, like Brian Callahan has talked about how the starters aren't going to play. That means a lot of Hassan and a lot of Julius Chestnut, I think, at running back in this game. Probably some Jabari Small as well, the UDFA from Tennessee. So the RB3 battle, I mean, they won't say this, but probably get settled on Saturday. You know, if one of them can separate from the other. You look at tight end 3, lots of guys still in the mix there with Thomas Odukoya, David Martin Robinson, and Nick Vannett, the veteran option there. And I'm also looking at edge. You know, guys like Thomas Rush, Shane Ray, they're probably going to play a lot in this game as they try to carve out roles. I'd like to see more from Jalen Harrell at edge. I mean, I could go on and on. Wide receiver, who's going to play, who's not. Kearis Jackson, Jaquan Jackson, Mason Kinsey, Kyle Phillips. Expect to see a lot of those guys as well.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And honestly, I'll kind of just go through there. Just a few thoughts, to be honest with you. The two positions that you mentioned out of the top, they are for sure roster battles, but they make my stomach turn. I just do not like the interior defensive line depth. Quite honestly, Keandre Coburn was going to make this roster because he's got to babysit T'Vondre Sweat. That was a big thing. Hey, we got Coburn and we got Simmons, and T'Vondre Sweat's locker is in between them so that they can keep him on task. And, you know, you could say babysit is too harsh of a term, but at the end of the day, they want Keandre Coburn to be a voice in T'Vondre Sweat's ear. So that's the nice way to put it. Babysit's probably the more harsh way to put it, but to me, it's really the same thing regardless. But I don't like the interior defensive line depth on this team. That's one of the positions where I think they're weaker. And, so watching them play out, I think they should churn a little bit there. They were right before we started recording. They're apparently working out Marvin Wilson, the former highly touted prospect from Florida State. So maybe they bring him in. Tight end 3. This is when we talked about Malik Willis, and you mentioned that Brian Callahan and the Bengals experience only kept 2 quarterbacks. To me, I would rather have a David Martin Robinson at tight end 4 than have Malik Willis at QB 3. I would rather have 7 wide receivers than have Malik Willis at QB 3. I would rather have 9 offensive linemen than have Malik Willis at QB 3. So it'll be interesting to see. You know, that's why watching Malik this week is so interesting. But a name that I wanted to mention, you mentioned as well, Jalen Harrell. Like, I think that Rashad Weaver in year 4, we know what he is now. Had okay moments in that game last weekend, but hasn't really stood out and taken the leap that you kind of hope that he could take in his 4th year. So Jalen Harrell, I think, for better or for worse, with this edge group in the depth, Jalen Harrell is going to be relied on to be a rotational piece for the Titans. And I just want to see him continue to hone in on his pass rush skills. He looked good dropping in coverage last week. Looked like he had good awareness. He wasn't a fish out of water, in my opinion. So I do want to see him. But a name that I really want to see a ton of is Andrew Rupcich. So I did a film breakdown on Andrew Rupcich this week, and I think that his size, being the converted tackle, he's still got good athleticism. I think Andrew Rupcich has a real, I think he's a lock to make this roster now. I think there's no question about it, especially with the Sadiq Charles retirement. I think Rupcich is a lock to make this roster, and I'm excited to see him because I think he could battle out and take the spot away from Dylan Radins. Maybe not week 1, but at some point during the season. Do you have any interest in kind of the Andrew Rupcich experience on Saturday night or any other offensive lineman that you think could make a move?
I've got a ton of interest in seeing Andrew Rupcich on Saturday night. I think the most interesting thing to me is how is it going to start, right? Because Callahan's talked, okay, the starters are going to play. Well, what does that mean?
Right.
Is Dylan Radins a starter? You know what I mean? Like, Radins get to take this game, know that he deserves that kind of grace, right? So with Andrew, does he play? Does he not play? When does he play? If so, and how does Andrew Rupcich factor into that equation? So I got a lot of it. Look, man, I remember when he was coming out of Culver Stockton, baby. Like, you know, I do a lot of draft stuff.
NAIA.
He was on my radar coming out of there. So I know his people really well. So I'm pumped for him. I think he's, you know, he almost made this roster last year. He just missed out, but he's back. He's battling. He's competing. And I've been saying it on Twitter. I wouldn't be shocked if we get a bit of a stunner here, you know, when he takes the job outright. So really curious to see what happens at right guard on Saturday.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's one of the spots where most of the starter spots feel like they're kind of locked in. Like we know who to expect, but that's one spot that still feels very, very open. So will be interesting to see. Do want to ask you this question, put you on the spot here. Out of the 3 young linebackers, now hopefully we get, Cedric Gray back out there. Will he play? We'll see. But Cedric Gray, James Williams, Otis Reese, out of those 3 linebackers, if one of them could take a major leap, who would you want it to be? Who do you think it would be?
Well, I guess I would want it to be Cedric Gray because they've got the most invested in him, right? Like they'd probably answer that way too because you use a fourth. It's not a ton of investment, but you use the fourth into the other guys are a more picks in the drafts. Probably be the one they'd like to see us from. If I had to pick who it's going to be, though, I'm going with now. We all know how well he played down the stretch of last season. And then, we didn't hear a lot from him in camp, but now the pads come on. He was pretty damn good against San Francisco in last weekend's preseason game. He popped a little bit during joint practices. I think Otis Reese is the one that's most capable of taking that step this year. James Williams, super high upside. He looked good. I know you know that. He looked good when he came in last week against San Fran. James did. But let's see him a ton against Seattle on Saturday, in my opinion. So James Williams will be a good one to watch.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny that you say his name there because that's a perfect segue for me because that's who I would want to take the leap. Look, I know Cedric Gray is the 4th round pick. I know they have more invested. It's not a ton, but more. But James Williams, I think if you saw the best version of Cedric Gray and the best possible version of James Williams, the version of James Williams is better. I just think he's got more natural ability. He was just more of a raw project converted from safety. I think James Williams just natural build and natural skills and his skill set as a player, although less refined than Cedric Gray. I think it's if they both reach their max capacity, best potential version, I think James Williams would actually be the better player. It's less likely that James Williams will get there compared to Cedric Gray. But yeah, that is something that I'm watching for. But you're 100% right on all those. Good discussion, good young players. Now, Justin, we got to talk about this excellent book that you put out. So we're going to get into that now. Before we do, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you have the tools to find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board, okay? LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you aren't looking on LinkedIn, well, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. It's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Titans fans, let's cap off today's preview edition of the Locked On Titans podcast, taking a look at Titans Saturday night preseason game number 2 against the Seattle Seahawks. We talked about Malik Willis, talked about some other young players that we would like to see step up and some of the other position battles that are going on. Now I do want to take the opportunity to talk about something that's really, really cool, and it's a book that Justin has put together. It's called Titans of the South. Now, before we get into it, I do want to thank you again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, again, check out Locked On Fantasy Football. It's that time of year. You guys got fantasy drafts lined up. I know I got a couple here in the next few weeks. And if you want to win your league, you need the best fantasy insights. You need the best fantasy draft strategies, and you're going to get that on Locked On Fantasy Football. The link to that podcast is down in the description, so you don't even got to search. It's Locked On Fantasy Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Justin, I was lucky enough for you to send me an advance copy of the book. Had a great time looking through it this week. I spent a little bit of time in doctor's offices and different places and stuff like that, and it gave me a lot of time to do some reading. So, just to give my audience a little quick rundown, basically, it is a complete history of the Tennessee Titans. Like, every year, I love how you put the depth charts in there. There's great visuals. There's good pictures that you added in. And, Justin, I got to say, it's not just every season. I like how you had special sections about the cool things that have happened. Like, you know, Chris Johnson's run to 2K, Eddie George's run to 2K. Like, you had the Music City Miracle, of course, like some of the coolest moments that deserve their own recognition, not just, hey, in the 1999 season, the Titans pulled off the Music City. No, like it gets its own kind of spot to live and breathe. So I love everything that you've done here. It looks like a ton of work. I guess from your own words, the words of the author, what was kind of your favorite part about putting this book together?
Wow. You know, I think it was really diving into the history of the franchise because, you know, full disclosure, I'm 34 years old and I had to cover 63 seasons in franchise history. So I had to go way back to 1960, 1961 and figure everything out. And it's funny, like I'll tell a story I haven't told anyone. When I decided, or when I thought I decided I was going to do it, I think I needed one final vote of confidence that that my heart was in the right place. So I picked up the phone and I called Jim Wyatt and I said, Jim, I've got this opportunity. Like this is come across my desk. I think I'm going to do it. But, you know, you've covered the team forever, essentially, right?
Literally. Yeah.
I mean, since it's been in Tennessee, obviously. How do you, and it gave me a quiet confidence. He said the way to do it. And I didn't cut him off, but I said, I think the best way to do it is start at the beginning, immerse myself in 1960. Nothing else matters. We start 1960, immerse myself in every year, finish every year, and then move on to the next. Exactly it. You got to start at the beginning. You got to not care about 1997 until you get to 1997, right? You start at the beginning, you immerse yourself, enrich yourself with the culture, and go from there. So that's what I did. You know, time management, Reese put together. So I think my favorite part about it was honestly learning more about the franchise that I love.
Yeah, well, honestly, that's my favorite part of reading it because, Justin, like you said, we're about the same age. I'm 33. I mean, you're an old man at 34. You know, I'm a young 33-year-old. So all jokes aside, like, we're about the same age. And I'll be honest with you, even since I've been alive, like when I started following the team when I was 8, 9 years old, like I'm 8 and 9 years old, I'm 10 years old, and I'm from Ohio. And I know, you know, you're from Canada. So it's like, I didn't get to watch the Titans locally. My family didn't have money for NFL Sunday ticket. The only way I got to watch the Titans game on a Sunday when I was 11 years old is if I went to a buddy's house and his family had Sunday ticket, and then they're Bengals fans. They don't want to watch the Titans game. So I'm like, can you click over during the commercial? Can you know? So like, I never really got to like focus on the Titans in the way that I wanted to until I got to be an adult and I had my own money and resources to watch the team and do that. So this was a great way. It's like, I remember those seasons and I remember watching the highlights and I remember knowing the team and playing Madden and knowing the guys and all that. But like a lot of it, you know, you forget or you just never knew the true story. We all at this age take in the season way different than we did when we were kids. It's just totally different. So getting to go back through those seasons, even the seasons that I saw and were experiencing, it just gave a whole new kind of breadth of information to it. And I like you say, just learning about everything. To me, the best part is just learning about everything with reading it. Is there anything in the book, I know like that was your favorite part in general, but is there any like one moment or one season or anything that really captivated you?
You know, 1978. If there's a year I had to choose that obviously I wasn't familiar with, I wasn't even alive yet, I wasn't following the team. I think 1978 was really interesting because they sucked in the round. Like after the AFL years, right? Well, in 78, what does Bum Phillips do? He acquires the number 1 overall pick in the draft. I think he gave up 4 or 5 picks now, if I remember correctly, and a player. And he goes get Earl Campbell, right? Like he gets Earl Campbell, who goes on to rush for like almost 1,500 yards. He's named like a PFWA MVP, Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think AFC Player of the Year it was. They go to they win a ton of games. Playoffs for the first time. AFL merger. Like 1978 was, I think, really, really cool. Really cool. So that's a year that really, really stood out to me. I mean, you got legends like Bum Phillips and obviously Earl Campbell. Like, I honestly, I think 70 to this day, I can best season in franchise history. I know they won in 60 and 61. And of course, you know, 99 for me, nothing's top 99 yet. But 78's right up there, man. Like I had such a blast writing the chapter on 1978.
Yeah, that's awesome. And see, that's the kind of stuff that like nobody's pulling out right now, which makes the book such kind of a unique piece for Titans fan to have. If you're a Titans fan and you care about the history, you absolutely have to have this. So I guess, Justin, last thing, just tell people where they can get the book, any other information that you want to give to people. And of course, you could tell them where to find your work.
So the book is available for pre-order right now everywhere books are sold. I mean, so if you get your books from Amazon, if you get your books from Barnes & Noble, wherever you shop for your books, you're going to be able to find Titans of the South, at least for a local online order. Free shipping to your house, your store, your local store, whatever it is, you're going to find Titans of the South. It's been really humbling and cool so far. Like we've sold copies already in Brazil, Spain, France, the UK, New Zealand. I think China, we sold copies of. So it's like, anything I can do my part to bring this Titans community together. It's been amazing. I've had parents reach out to who are our age, by the way, Tyler. I've had parents who are old men like us and moms reach out and say, hey, I bought my son the book because I want this to help foster his love of the franchise. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, wow, I wish I had something like that when I was that age, right? So it's like, I'm just so grateful. I'm so humbled. It's coming out in a couple of weeks. It's not out yet, but it is available for pre-order. It's coming out early September. You get your pre-order now. You ensure that you'll get it as quickly as you can. You'll be the first. I've sent out a ton of digital copies to media like yourself. The feedback has been overwhelming. You know, I've heard from so many incredible people in this market that are so pleased with the book. Jim Wyatt, by the way, I mentioned how much I leaned on him for his advice early on. He actually wrote the foreword for the book. I was so honored that you probably saw it. There's like a whole page of Jim Wyatt endorsing the book and talking about his experience covering Titans. It's like one of the first pages in the book. So I was so honored to get that stamp of approval. Before I did that, before Jim agreed to do that, and I don't blame him, by the way, he said, "Can I see what 1999 looks like?" So I sent him the copy of 1999 before he wrote the foreword. He wanted to make sure I was on the right track, and I don't blame him. You're not going to put your name on something that's crap, right? And when he read 1999, he said, "Wow, this looks. I can see how this is coming together, and this is really good stuff." So I'm so excited to get for everyone to get their hands on it. It's been about 2 years. I don't half-ass anything. I really don't. So when I agreed to take this project on, it was 2 years of my life. 63 seasons summarized, full color photography. Like,
yep,
you're going to see beautiful photos of the early 60s. Like, I'm really, really proud of how it came together. And
yeah, it's really excellent. And I'll be honest with you, Justin, you may have sent me a digital copy, but I'm still going to purchase the book in its, physical form as well, because, you deserve the support for the work that you put in and how well you did it. But that is Justin Melo, folks. Again, you can find his written work, Music City Miracles, but Titan Size is better. Sorry, Justin, it's personal. Also, Music City Audible does work for the Draft Network. I mean, nobody in the football writing business does better pre-draft interviews with the prospects and stuff than Justin does. So thank you so much for coming on, Justin. Again, guys, check out his book, Titans of the South. Really a must-have for Titans fans. And with that being said, that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, here with my guest, Justin Melo, and this was Locked On Titans.